Okay, hi everyone. Um, today I'll be talking mainly about like for data analysts, like things you need to know, like things like questions you need to ask, um, and different field in the data world. Yeah, so I think is what I'm going to be doing and what does each two does. I think these are basically the three things I am going to be talking about today. And if there are questions, I would like you to ask me questions like at the end of my discussion. So this lesson or this meeting is just to augment some of the things that you are learning. There are some things that you would like still come across, part of the resources that would send to you have a Velonti. There are some of them that you probably might never come across. Also, I think I would just probably like emphasize on some and put them in our terms. So the thing about it is that I think first of all let me start with questions you need to ask as a data analyst, as a data scientist. So one thing you need to know is that I don't know like if you remember definition of data. I don't know if it's data. I know in secondary school there's one definition like that. Data is a raw blah 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 or something. Information is a meaningful data. I think I've forgotten, but basically, like the way data is, it depends on like the type of data that you have. So you have something called so this is like let me say types of data, but I would when you ask another person type of data, they might say different things, but it just depends on context. You might have like qualitative and quantitative um quantitative quantitative data, and I think just put analysis because obviously, and also you might have if somebody asks what's another type of data, you might say structured and unstructured data. So but all of this really the second one is more of like people who are like into data science role and all. So mind you, the disclaimer is that there are some things that I probably might say that because of issues of words, like just you guys to understand. So you could always go back and double confirm also. So for qualitative, so when I talk in respect to types of data, and I say, oh, quantitative and qualitative, for the most part, what we've been doing is quantitative. So where you have like rows and column, like a matrix, like you have like a data, or they ask somebody, okay, what is your age? So they ask a question, what is your age? And let's say 100 people respond. One person say I'm 25, one person say I'm 40. They ask another question, what is your gender? And that person says I'm male, another person says I'm female, and maybe whatever gender identity they have. So they also ask another question, what is your income? So all of those things that are kind of not much of a statement that have like defined options. So basically things that have so for quantitative so things that have like defined options in which, for example, they ask me, how do you feel today? You know, like the way I would say, except they give an option of very good, I feel bad. That's going to be quantitative. So divine option. But if they ask me, like for now, qualitative. If they ask me, how do you feel today? And I start to say, oh, yesterday I ate bread. I went out. Last week wasn't very great. This week I hope it will be very great. That is now qualitative. So qualitative, for the most part, it is more of like an open-ended answer, open-ended answers. So they ask you, what do you think about the Nigerian election? So if you start to say, oh, I think Nigerian election is this and this and that. If they ask you what you think about Nigerian election, you say, oh, they give you option of good, bad, awesome, indifferent. That is quantitative. But if they tell you, oh, like open-ended. So one thing about it is that you need to start to see that the way data is will determine the way it is analyzed. So if the data is quantitative in nature, you are going to analyze it like in a quantitative way. If the data is qualitative in nature, you're going to analyze it in a qualitative way. And the tools you use for each of these different ones are kind of, so I'm going to be mentioning like the you use tools you use for um quantitative. So for tools that are used for quantitative, so the most popular one, not like the most popular, but like the ones that people use very well is Excel, Power BI. You've heard of W. I might not get the correct spelling of the tablets. I think I got it actually. Power BI, Tableau, R, Python, SQL, say MySQL, still like the same thing though. Not same thing, but it's like the same thing. MySQL, maybe Power BI, Power Query. I think I'm just gonna stop here. They are like see a bunch. Okay, let me see. It's data SPSS. So the way you analyze a quantitative, that is like a defined options, and like it's different from the way you analyze a qualitative. So for the most part in your voluntary learning, you are going to be dwelling more on quantitative because most organizations are big on quantitative. So qualitative is like also a lot of organization does it also, but it's not as widely known compared to quantitative. So for open-ended answers, there's a way you analyze it. So you can analyze a movie, you can analyze a conversation between two friends. So for instance, you want to know how bad, and like the question is, when do you need to know if you are like supposed to do quantitative or qualitative? So let's say you are part of like you actually want to gather the data, like for what most of these ones I'm saying is that okay, you have like a data already, but let's say you're working as a data analyst and you don't know, should we ask questions like, oh, how do you feel about a particular thing? I feel good, I feel bad, or you want people to like express themselves. So it depends on like your resources that you have available at that time. It also depends on the time frame you have. So it is easier to do a quantitative analysis compared to a qualitative analysis. Easier in sense is kind of subjective. Maybe I switch to the other way around. So for quantitative analysis, so let's say you're a company or your organization, or you just want to know like how the percentage of persons who desire something, or like maybe you want people to rate your product, like if it is good or nice or something, you just want to get customer feedback, then you can use just divine questions and all. But for qualitative, let's say you want to go deep root, you want to know, okay, why is it that people actually do not like this product? Like you want to hear people's different opinion, you want to hear like deep context. So you then have like open-ended question. Most times in qualitative, you probably might not have like a lot of you might not be able to use a lot of persons. So this is just by the way, for those of you that are here, I would ask you to give me like a recap of what I spoke about already. So please do well to pay attention. So that I'll be sure you understand what I'm saying. So for qualitative, for quantitative, sorry, you can use like size, you can use like a large a large number, like the the how large the size is, it makes it more reliable. Like if you are able to like interview 100 people, 300 people, but imagine like for qualitative, something is open-ended and you ask people what do they feel about something, and you're not just asking them one question, you're asking them like 5, 10 questions, and they now start to say a lot of things. Imagine you now imagine you kind of interviewed a lot of persons. It's very hard for you to like make sense of the information and all. So what the tools you use for qualitative, you could use like, you might not use any tool. It depends on how small or how large it is. So there's a thinking process for qualitative, which if we are done with quantitative, I might explain a little bit. You could use something as simple as MS Word, that is Microsoft Word. You could use like advanced tool like Atlas TI. We use things like NVivo, yeah, like a couple, they are a couple, but these are like basically the most two popular ones. So most of the time that you see people doing this will be maybe more of like academia stuff, like people in academia, like in the but there's still like a couple of jobs around this because a lot of people don't know how to do this. But I would say like qualitative is sorry, qualitative is actually easier to learn compared to quantitative. Like somebody who doesn't have like any background about data analysis can make can learn about qualitative. And I'll say that I think if you are looking for some quick and dirty stuff, it is actually easier to make money as a qualitative data analyst compared to a quantitative data analyst because for quantitative is like quite very large. So field is very large that you might be lost in the stream. Field is very large that you might be lost in the stream. And yeah, the field is like a little bit like narrow, like so things that people are doing is quite same. So like in going to like type of data, I said we also have like when you talk about type of data, you have structured and unstructured data. Structured data for the most part are data that like okay, that they have like headers. When I mean headers, it's like it is quite clear. So when you see male, female, this question you're asking about gender, or when you see like age, this is about the age. So it's a very like nice and clean data. Unstructured data, things are just like here and there. So you have to find a way to make them like usable for analysis. In data analysis, so the things you need to know that in the ideal world, like most of it, for the most part, what takes your time is data cleaning. When we give you projects to like work on, like most of the data are like already clean. When I mean data cleaning, so for purpose of clarity, data cleaning is basically what you need to do for you to ensure that the data is like okay for it to be analyzed. So let me give for example, let's say for instance, you collected a data analysis and people you the way you structure sorry the way you structured the questions from the onset, or the way the person who structured the questions from the onset did some mistake and all, and it wasn't right. So you would have to like go through the process of data cleaning. So in data analysis, so for example, taller is different from like taller, different from taller. So like your data or your software sees this as three different things. Although as a human being, like you will see that how is this different? It's not just capital letter. So in data analysis, you would see that this is quite different. That was why if you notice, when for Velonti, when we asked you to do feedback, we gave you all like a unique identifier. That is like a number, so that the number that you're going to insert every week. So irrespective of, even though this week you wrote your Gmail as Jaye Joseph, or next week you wrote it as JIYE, I can always use your unique identification number to find who you are, because this 101 is the same thing as for this person. So in data analysis, sometimes the data might need you to clean them. So before you go into but before you go into starting to analyze, for you to do things, first thing first is, and this will go back to questions you need to ask or things you need to do. So I just kind of like talked a little bit. This conversation is not like one-off conversation. I'm still going to be talking more about it. So questions you need to ask is that you need to, first of all, like know, it depends in context. So what is the objective, like, or the solution that needs to be solved? So you need to ask yourself, like before anybody says, oh, maybe I have qualitative, quantitative, so you can ask so maybe questions like, what's the objective or the solution that needs to be solved? Before that, you can always inquire if it is in academic contexts or industry. So, but if you are working with an organization, this one might be very clear to know. So you need to know what is the problem that you need to solve. So another thing you need to ask is that this is more like in that sense. So what questions do they intend the data should answer? So like data analysis is just having like a bunch of questions that you think the data should be able to answer and say, okay, from you have these questions. So if you are not doing your data analysis from that approach, sometimes you just want to explore your data and try to do different things. Sometimes organizations don't have answers to this question. You as a data analyst, so one of the things you can do is that when you glance through a data, you can have like some thought questions. So all of those things or pre-thought assumption, they used to call them either hypotheses in the research field. Hypotheses are like things you expect the result is going to look like. So you collect a data, and so I'm assuming that, okay, male earn more than female because of maybe what I know in the past. So you want to assume that's what's going to be the result. So when you do analysis, you're going to see if your assumption was right or not. Because if you don't start from a place of assumption, you would not know, oh, maybe things are going fine or not. And sometimes you might not just have any assumption, you might just try to tweak one or two things, check things. So when you check what questions do they intend to answer with the data, so then you look at what are the important variables in the data given. So what I mean by important variables, so you try to collect the data first of all. So for instance, like if a data has like they have a question of something like what is people's email, their name, their phone, their sex, their age, their location. So some of these might actually not be very important. Maybe things like their name. You might not, if everybody's being different name, I have 100 people, like you might like, how can you analyze like a name? So an email address, you might not, except you want to know maybe everybody's using a Gmail or something, their phone number, you might say, okay, this is not needed. Maybe their sex, okay, maybe their age, maybe the location, if they stay in Lagos or Abuja, those might actually affect. So you start to look at the data and try to look out and begin to separate the things that are important and not important. So what is important or not important will be dependent on this question, what they want to solve. So instantly, there are some things that you'll be able to fish out and immediately these things are not important. Some, like you would have to, you are not sure, then you're like, okay, let me get back to this. Then the next thing is that you try to do your data cleaning. So data cleaning is trying to look at the data. This takes a lot of time. So if you can clean your data, then you are good. And you would decide on the software you want to use or you have the ability to use. So it also depends on the type of data that are given to you. So if the data is like quantitative, then you are going to use this. So I think I have about 6 minutes left. So I will just like give no. So the next time we'll meet, we should talk about different field in the digital world, and we should talk about what does each tool mean. So all of these tools like Excel, Power BI, Tableau, R, Python, MySQL, Stata, like what does all of these tools means? Are they interchangeable? Like, what does if I don't learn, do I have to learn all of them? And all things like that. So I feel like this information is also like enough for you to like digest. So what I want to do, I'm going to stop sharing my screen right now and I'm going to ask questions. I'm going to first of all stop recording. Stop recording.